Good morning, Hacksters! It is my favorite day of the week. It is Tuesday, and that means that I get to interview someone who is awesome in the hardware community. Today we have Tommy Marshall, aka Rocktronica, creator of Oskitone. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Alex. Thank you for having me. Lovely,
Oh,
lovely Tuesday.
so exciting for me. I've seen you around at maker fairs and things,
Yes.
and just you sent me this kit for Oskitone Scout. I'm so excited to put that together. Tell us, what is Oskitone? And yeah, let's
Well,
do it.
thank you for asking. I've been dying to tell anybody. Oskitone is my little baby company. It's my humble pursuit. Oskitone is a one man studio wherein I make open source electronic musical instruments. They are usually 3D printed. They're usually outrageously colored. They tend to be kind of cute. Um, but I like it a lot. I've been working on it off and on since 2017ish. It's a lot of fun. It's my little baby.
2017-ish, and you've got a number of different models that you've come out with since then. And is this the most recent one, the Oskitone Scout?
The Oskitone Scout is the most recent. That's right. It's called the Scout. It's so named because it is my first foray into microcontrollers.
Oh, tell us
So
about that.
yeah, previously everything was a lot of 555 timers, stuff like this,
Yes.
which is fun but limiting. And I've done various projects with, Adafruit, CircuitPython boards and stuff like this, but I wanted to make something that could start to do more and can kind of lay the groundwork for other weirder things. And I picked the ATmega 328. Does that sound right? Which is what the Arduino Uno uses, and that's what the Scout uses. So the Scout is kind of startup folks would call it an MVP. It's a minimum viable product. It's an Arduino compatible 17 key mono synth. It's got a square wave output. It's got a tiny little baby speaker. So I intentionally tuned it high. I intentionally put it at an octave that would sound okay with a real dinky speaker, which means it's kind of, it might like annoy dogs and stuff like this, but it looks like this. Oskitone Scout. Ooh,
Beautiful.
There's a little switchy on the side, and a hidden LED. Boonk. Sounds like
Yeah, I
this.
see that.
Ooh. Not the best demo, but that's what it sounds like.
I love that you got the glide enabled on there, and presumably if people don't like the glide, then they can reprogram it with the Arduino chip.
Yeah, that's right. So it is not. I made the decision to make it cheaper to not have any USB built in. So what you got to do is you got to get one of those. I don't have one here, but an FTDI USB cable.
Oh.
And then it has these exposed UART pins. So you clunk a thing in there, and then it appears to your computer just like an Uno.
I see.
Yeah. And the glide, which you mentioned, what the Italians would call a portamento, I think.
Ah, yes.
Glissando, I don't know. That's like pulled out up top, so it's a one-line change. Change that, as is
Nice.
octave, stuff like this.
And all this stuff is open source. So you mentioned earlier that it's fully open source, and I just pulled up the GitHub for Oskitone. You can find Arduino/Scout in here, and you've got your libraries. You've got Scout.ino.
Yeah.
And somewhere in here is
here
we go. Float glide 0.25. And presumably there's something in here where you can enable and disable that. Sweet.
Yeah, you set glide to 0.
If no glide on fresh. Cool. That is splendid. And then you've also got the hardware files and stuff. You've got a really nice design physically with this object where all these things are snap fit. When it came in the box that you sent me, it's got it was all put together, and it was like, it took some doing. Like I had to stick my thumb in the hole and like lever it apart so it like holds together, but it also wasn't difficult. I think you've got a really good balance of like being able to open it up, and also it being durable. And what was the process like designing that? How many iterations do you go through?
It was involved. Thank you for noticing that. That was my big, I don't know, that was an innovation with this. So all of my projects, as one would hope, kind of build on the previous one. So I could demo it, but basically I'm always kind of tinkering with things. I always want the enclosure to be a little bit better. I had one that had sort of, so my first ones ever in 2017-18 where they opened up like a box,
like
they
a
opened up like
clamshell.
this. This is something that I never sold, but this was an amp prototype that was.
Oh,
and all of them had this. Yeah, see, amp prototype. All of them had these hinges. I was really into this idea that I like cigar boxes. So I like this idea that you can open things and look at what's inside, like this random speaker.
That's very nice.
I had this idea that if you're going to spend a long time on something, you should be able to admire your hard work. I still think that's true. But it does make it kind of awkward sometimes. Later, I switched to things that have kind of a hitch in the back, so you clunk this thing in, and then you screw it from the bottom. For keys, this is a tangent, but keys are like levers, and you have to be very, very exact with how they fit together. There's like this fulcrum part where the keys kind of mount above the buttons, and if there's any weirdness here, you get odd playing stuff. There's a lot of intuition that folks have when using keyboards, and if that's not exactly right, it feels bad. It's like playing a guitar with bad action or something. It's funky. Anyway, the point is that I had hitch things and screws. I had a project where the enclosure kind of slid together. Funk. The Scout mostly snaps together, and I did that to cut down on screws. And
yeah, there's only like 2 or 3 screws in this whole thing.
Yeah. And the screws sandwich the whole thing together, so it's like the enclosure top, the keys. Hello. The enclosure top, the keys. This little kind of mounting rail. This is a prototype. It doesn't look like this. And then this kind of goes on top like this, and you can kind of see how the screws at the bottom sandwich everything together. And that was, I don't know. That was my thought process there.
Now that prototype there, I saw that the PCB is beige, and I was wondering, is that a milled PCB or is that one that you ordered from a fab house?
This,
it almost looks like from a distance it could be a. Oh no, okay.
I think you know what it is.
Is it done on a Bantam? No, it's just a.
No, it's.
Oh, is that After Dark?
Yeah.
Oh, my fave.
And that's a big old copper pour.
Wow, dang. Oh yeah, of course. On the screen one here, that's totally a big pour as well.
Yeah.
So, do you 3D print everything in house, or do you use a shop?
I do it all in house. I do it all. You have to trust me. To my right, there is a dog-tired Prusa. This is my very humble companion. This thing runs a lot in my house. It's kind of just a constant. It's like a fluorescent light that's just always humming and always working. Yeah, I only have one. I haven't done anything out of house yet. It has not yet been worth the cost for me. I'm also not yet at a scale where I need to do anything out of house, which is good and bad. And what else can I say? Yeah, 3D printing. I like 3D printing. I'm not an expert. I'm not a guru. I intentionally bought this one. This is my second one. I bought it assembled because I didn't. The first one I assembled myself, but I'm not an expert, so it had a lot of problems. I want to pay experts to be experts. I don't need to be an expert.
Yeah, especially if you're, if you don't want to be the steward of the 3D printer. There's this thing of like, you don't want the project to be the printer itself. You want the project to be the other stuff that you're trying to make with it, right? Absolutely right.
Yeah, I love this machine, but it's absolutely like a means to an end. It's like having a good drill. It's just reliable, but I don't ever have to think about it. It just works.
Yeah, legit. And how did you choose a PCB fab house? Because whenever you post PCBs on the internet, all these people like DM you and you're like, "Are you looking for PCBs?"
Yeah, I like those people. I've engaged with one of them once, and it was not good. It felt like a bait and switch. They were like, "Oh, man, this for free," and I was like, "Okay, here are some giant PCBs I'd like you to make," and they were like, "Not free." I use Oshpark for R&D. I like them a lot. I like Drew Festini.
Yeah.
I love everything that they do for the open source community. I love how supportive they are. Yeah. I do sometimes use offshore houses. But yeah, for locally, I love Oshpark. The fast turnaround's great. I think pricing's straightforward. I think the interface is, I think it's very beginner friendly. Yeah, nice.
And then for the design aspect, I see that you're using KiCad, my bad, and OpenSCAD, which are also open source tools. Super cool.
Yeah. So you say those. Did you say KiCad and OpenSCAD?
I said KiCad and then I said KiCad because people have corrected me on this. Apparently, the team that develops KiCad is French, and so like I always thought the KiCad was like the more aesthetically pleasing one, but I'm gonna go with KiCad because that's like, I don't know. Oh, and then OpenSCAD. I guess there's also people who say OpenSCAD, or what do you say?
I say OpenSCAD. If
Ah,
CAD is an acronym that's pronounced CAD, and you put an
yeah,
S in front of it, you cannot convince me that that's not pronounced SCAD.
that's a good point. I don't actually know what the S stands for. Is it Open
I don't either.
Software CAD? I don't know. Maybe
Open.
if I knew more about what the acronym stands for, I could be convinced. I'm not rock solid on that. Speaking of
I
rock,
doesn't
wait, what?
matter. No. Who cares what acronyms mean? It's all just garbage.
Totally. I'm gonna run with this segue and say, speaking of rock, so
Please.
your username is Rocktronica, on Twitter. And you've got a bunch of cool stuff on here. Do you yourself rock? Do you play music? And what kind of music stuff do you do? Does that inform how you're building these synths?
I don't rock at all. I know I don't rock. When I was in high school, when I was a young emo ska kid, and I had a 4-track and I recorded a little album in my bedroom, and then I would go to the ska punk shows with my CDs that I printed, and I would try to talk to people and convince them to. I had a little table there, and I would convince them. I was like, "Hey, do you like music?" And they would say, "What kind of music?" And I would say, "It's rock and roll." Sometimes I use a drum machine. It's electronica. It's rocktronica.
Mm.
And then whatever, that became my alias. It's not the best alias, but I've stuck with it. No, I don't think I rock. I think I don't know. I don't know what I do. I noodle. I meander.
Legit. And you have all these beautiful graphics on here. You've got this animation, you've got these like, exploded diagrams that animate and stuff. What is your design process like? Is this part of your design process, or is this more of just like a thing that you're doing for fun? How do you design these things?
All the animations I mostly do for fun.
Mm.
I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not an industrial designer. I basically have some kind of background in film.
Oh.
In college, I made cartoons, so I love animation. I watch cartoons all the time. So I like making things that move, and I like tricking open SCAD into doing animations that it doesn't really want to do.
Uh-huh.
But I'll say another thing that's kind of unexpected. So open, whatever, you can animate things in OpenSCAD, but sometimes it's, how can I say this? So I used to, when I was a software engineer, and I guess I still kind of am, but I got paid to write the code called front end, which is like where the rubber meets the road, the part of a website that people interact with, the code that says this website looks like this, and you interact with it in this way, and it does these things.
Right.
But the maybe this will age me, but the part that I always liked is the code that tells it how to adapt to different viewports.
Mm.
And so I always loved writing this code that would make a website rearrange.
Making it responsive.
Responsive. When I was a teenager and I was writing like Visual Basic, this will really age me. I loved writing.
Okay, I'm gonna test it. Oh, look at that!
I didn't write that, but I loved writing code that I love making user interface code. And all of that, basically, I think ports directly to this open SCAD stuff and everything else done. Because when you animate something, you can kind of see how it fits together in a way that you can't if it's just a static thing.
Yeah.
So I was talking earlier about an enclosure that like slides. I animated that so I can make sure that it worked the way that I expected.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are your favorite cartoons?
I
On
I
subject.
I love a Steven Universe.
Oh yeah.
I love. Geez, what am I watching? We're rewatching Over the Garden Hill. What's that called? Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No, Steven Universe is up there. I like. Oh, have you watched City of Ghosts?
No.
I think you might like this. It's Japanese American showrunner, but it's about the cultures that get replaced in gentrified Los Angeles.
Oh wow.
And they show up as ghosts, but it's like a playful ghost, like, and there's this sort of like ghost writer ish team of kids who hunt down the ghosts and stuff like this. I thought this show was darling. I loved this show.
It looks very darling.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sweet. Have you ever thought about doing like a themed one of these, or if you were to do like a collaboration, what would be your dream collaboration?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I don't know.
They seem like they're perfect for, a cartoon style, like I could totally see a Steven Universe themed one of these.
Yeah, that especially looks like a weird little alien face.
It totally does.
I don't know. I'll think about that. For a while, I was playing with the idea of hardware's in a weird spot right now with 3D printing and customization, where we can all, if we have the wherewithal and the time and a little discretionary income, we can all basically make whatever we want. And so I had this idea for a while that was like, I still have this idea, like a Build-A-Bear, but for electronic musical instruments.
Whoa.
Or there are these shops in the mall where you can build your own RC car. And you pick out the chassis and the wheels, and you decide if it's RC or push, and then you can print a little like license plate for the back. Stuff like this. I think that would be cool as a musical instrument. So maybe someday there's an Oskitone store where you can walk in and make your own custom Alex synth.
I love it. Well, especially because you have these cool different 3D printed sort of legends on them, like this OK synth you were doing for a while. You could totally put different things there.
Yeah.
As a sort of license plate.
For a while, I had a customizer. I built this little web app that let you change the text and then would give you a kind of a crude preview. Because I design in OpenSCAD, ostensibly I could make a thing that is sort of a front end interface for this thing, and I can write a little API, and then it spits out a zip of STLs for your customized thing. It's interesting. I've thought about it for a while. It could be kind of finicky because there's always stuff that you want to like pixel push around.
Yeah.
But it's a fun idea.
Cool. It almost seems like a good plugin for like Tinkercad or something.
Yeah, you're right.
So you made this one. When this came onto the internet, I just lost my mind. It was so cool. So I think 555 timers are really cool as a way to sort of get into minimal circuit design that can produce cool noises, 555 or square waves and stuff.
Yeah.
And I love this. I just want to tell me about it. How did you decide how to make it? How do you know how to design these things? What's your process like? Tell us about this kit.
I think conceptually it's very, very, very simple. Right, conceptually.
Conceptually.
The 555 timer is what is the word, like ubiquitous. It's been around for a long time. It's kind of like a recurring joke within electronics. Oh, you could have done that with a 555 timer.
Right.
And my first, when I got into electronics as sort of a diversion from software, my first things were like, make a police siren with a 556 or something. And so once you figure out that you can make a square wave, once you figure out that you can make like one note, the next step is like, how do I tune the note? After that, it's like, how can I play multiple notes at the same time, which is always been kind of a trick.
Wait, can you do polyphony with a 555?
No.
Okay, yeah. You just have more 555s.
That's right.
Legit.
And so the first couple things I put out, the OK1 and OK2, which we kind of mentioned earlier, were just one 555 timer. And it was tuned, I think it's called a resistor ladder. So each button had a little trim pot, and they all kind of add together. And so the higher you go, the less resistance, the lower, the more, and then that tunes the thing.
Right.
The Poly 555 has 2555 timer circuits, each tuned to their own frequency, and it's kind of ridiculous. It looks like this ish.
I love that.
So they're arranged in a grid. They're under a plexiglass thing, which is was a fun, welcome design challenge to think about a big plexiglass window. This supports that idea I was talking about earlier, where if you're spending a lot of time on something, you should be able to show it off. Right, and this takes 5 hours to put together, and I think the last thing you want to do is to like do all of this and then cover it up.
Yeah.
So plexiglass was my answer. Here are those kind of hitches I was talking about with the enclosure. So this kind of funks together and then it screws in from the bottom. This has more screws than the Scout because it doesn't snap right there. It has this thumb wheel.
Is that for volume? Or? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the volume. You remember like Sony Walkman in the 90s? They all had this volume wheel on the side.
Oh yeah.
So that's a throwback to that. So each 555 circuit here is identical. Right here, you'll trust me, there's a 7805 5 voltage regulator that basically each of these keys routes 5 volts from this 9 volt to one of these circuits, and so you can play chords.
Oh, that's so good. It's almost a little bagpipey.
Yeah, it is. That's right. It's kind of a ridiculous instrument. When I was making it, and before I realized I should put a voltage regulator in there, it got so out of tune so fast. It's a little bit better with the 7805, but it's still like this isn't. I think this is closer to art than an instrument. I think this is something that you make and then you put on the shelf and you show it to people. I'm not sure it's something that you take on the road. If you're a touring musician, I don't know why you would take an awesome instrument on tour, but
I don't know. I can see it.
Yeah, Poly 555. It's fun. It's people have bought it, which I was surprised about. It feels to me like kind of an elaborate in joke, you know. Like I have had a lot of people buy it who don't care at all about 555s, and I'm like, there's going to be easier ways for you to do what you want. Which is why I'm, getting into microcontrollers and stuff like this.
I think it does sound amazing, and honestly, you say you don't understand why people buy it. I'm like, I've been ogling this for so long, you have no idea. And like, I mean, I guess you have an idea because it's only been around for so long, but I have had this idea of making like a 555 timer based bass for so long, and just to see the fact that you put not just 4 but like 25 of these things together is like, okay, it's not ridiculous. It's actually a fine idea to just like have 4 separate 555 timer circuits on one instrument. But here's a question. You have done a bunch with these timers. Do you think a bass is feasible, or would it just sound like a bunch of clicks once you get low enough?
It's feasible, but it's square waves, so it'll sound
exactly.
If you like that sound, it'll sound good.
I do love that sound. Yeah. It's the classic chiptune sound. I think it'd be amazing. Some like chunky, crispy, like really gnarly kind of heavy, crispy sound. I don't know. Anyway,
I think there's also a way to get a ramp out of a 555, but I think you'll need like a separate op amp or something.
I don't like ramps as much, I like sounds, I like squares, but anyway, sawtooth are like evil to me. I know I'm alone in that, but that's fine. So you sell these both as kits and as finished assembled versions, and are you doing all the assembly yourself, by the way, in that case?
I am, but I'm not doing a lot of it. I don't sell a lot of assembled kits. They're priced to account for my time. And because we're in the Bay Area, my time's more expensive than it would be if I lived somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, I don't sell a lot of these. I've sold a handful of Scout synths. I have not sold any Poly 555s. Basically because I've never made them available.
Yeah, so it's coming soon. Yeah,
that's forever been coming soon. We'll see if I open up any. I might for Christmas when I need some more money. But
like you say, it's like 2 to 3 times more expensive for the assembled version.
Yeah.
And it takes 5 hours to put together. Yeah, it's not surprising.
Yeah, that should cost some money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 5 hours to put together, and the Poly 555 takes about 20 hours to print. So it's a good chunk of labor in plastic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What kind of filament are you using?
I use PLA.
Nice.
I know it's not a forever kind of thing, but it works well for me. I like that it seems less toxic than other things.
Right.
I like that I can feel kind of okay about composting it, because we're in the Bay Area, and I think that our compost program can compost it.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so. Speaking of the kits, you have this gorgeous setup where you have this whole little bag with all the little parts in it, and you've got a custom sticker on it. I'm guessing based on your previous answers that you're putting these kits together yourself, but I've always been curious about like if it's possible to get a good experience with having a company, like a small company, to have someone put together kits for you. And especially you've got these ones that are like static and you have to cut open. So do you have your own like heat sealer thingy, or do you do some kind of out of house thing for that?
Right over there, you can't see it, but I have an impulse sealer. This is one of those things, you can get little versions of them for like resealing potato chip bags. But whatever, it's a wire that heats up and you like funk it down on this thing and then it melts the plastic. Cool. That's easy to get. You can get that online for, I don't know, $50 or something. I don't think that's that special. My packaging is okay. It's a lot of bags and bags. I do it all in house. It's a labor of love. I have thought about, I would love to be at a place of demand where I need the supply to outsource making those kits. So far, it hasn't really happened, but it's someday maybe.
Well, the way you do it, it looks super professional. Like I totally thought that this was something that you had outsourced, just because like it comes in this like really, it's like an anti-static bag, and it's like heat sealed and everything, and it's got your own sticker on it. It looks so nice, man.
Thank you. It's funny how having a printer and one of these like craft store paper cutters, it's funny how professional that makes you feel. Yeah. I can't explain it, but like printing out a sticker paper and then cutting it into the square and slapping on a thing, it's very, very accessible, but it feels, I don't know, it feels like I'm a little baby company, which I
am. And so you have a website, which mine is totally out of date. I don't know how up to date yours is, but it says that you're a software engineer. Are you still doing software engineering?
That's pretty out of date.
I know the feeling.
OpenSCAD is software and it's all code, so maybe I still am. Maybe this will resonate with you, but I struggle with labels. I struggle with what to call myself. When I'm employed, when I'm fully employed, yeah, I'm some kind of software engineer. But I work on Oskitone kind of off and on. When I started it as kind of a little escape from my startup job. I was programming at this place for like 4.5 years, which is a super long time in startup town. I was burnt out, and I had this little hobby of making sort of like cigar box, perf board, musical instruments, totally one-off things. And I thought, let's see if I could scratch out a little living doing this. Let's see if I could like go to the next step of scale instead of making one of these things, maybe making low tens or something. That meant PCBs and plastic, happened to be 3D printing. I bet if I had a CNC machine, it would be some kind of wooden something.
That'd be nice.
But I did that for a while, and I made a little bit of money. I went to Maker Faire, where you and I met, and then I ran out of money and I had to go back into software. Software's cool, to each their own. I'm competent at it. I'm good enough to get paid, but it's not, this Oskitone is my baby, and I love I love that I can obsess over the details, that I answer to no one, that there's no, PM telling me, that's not worth the time. I don't have to argue with anybody about how to do anything, for better or worse. Some of my code is not great. But whatever. I started in 2017, and I tried hard to make it viable, and I ran out of money. Went back in software. I did that for a little bit longer, like a year and a half. COVID hit. I got laid off in a huge
Yeah.
redundancy thing. I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'm healthy. I'm very
Glad to hear it.
thankful. But whatever. I had a little bit of. I had a little bit in savings, and I don't have people who depend on me yet, and I still had things that I want to do. So I jumped back in. I put out the Poly 555. I put out the ABC. I put out the Scout.
All since last year.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fun.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
No. Thank you. Sometimes I feel bad that I'm not making enough fast enough.
Oh, so
it's nice to list off my accomplishments and feel like, oh, okay, yeah, that was worth the time.
No, there's tons. And so also besides synthesizers, I love that you're sharing these other tools that you have. So you have like these CircuitPython tools, repo that people can go in and see about how to make it easier to work with CircuitPython.
Yeah, I was doing that when I was working on a machine that helped me play Animal Crossing.
Wait, is that this one?
Yeah, I was working on a button pusher. And I ran out of memory on the Adafruit board I was working on, and so I wrote some tooling that would like auto compile on save, and then deploy it to the board. That's fun. I like. I'm one of these classic like engineer type people where I could do something once or twice, but the third time I do it, I'm like, I gotta write it.
You gotta automate it, yeah.
So that is an example. Also, in most of these repos, there's another shell script that like builds all the STLs. So I don't have to go into the GUI and like
export,
pick the thing and export and name it. It's like a one line command where I'm like, make STLs, and then it renders all of them and names them well. It binary compresses them, it zips them, puts them in a folder. I have another tool for the APC. I was experimenting with self-hosting the STL, so that thing can also like upload it to GitHub or something. It's nice.
This is super cool.
I try to use everything that OpenSCAD can give me.
So cool. So everyone, yeah, you can go find this script and go export STLs really easily from OpenSCAD. That's so cool. And tell us about this button pusher. So you said this was for Animal Crossing?
It was absolutely for Animal Crossing.
Got a blog post on it.
Yeah, you ever play Animal Crossing?
I did not get on that particular wagon, but
It was a popular wagon, but I understand it wasn't for everybody. There's some things that you do in that are just kind of like, it's like farming or something. You're like button pushing this thing at regular intervals. And again, it's totally this engineer thing that's like, I'll do something a couple times, but too many times, I'm going to make a thing that does it for me.
Yeah.
And so I, for whatever reason, I had that board laying around. I wanted to learn about servos, and I wanted to learn about that character LCD and rotary encoders. So I got into it. I did it. It was useful. I don't play that game anymore, but I think if I did, I could just pop it out and put it in, and it would work just fine.
Yeah, I have the opposite kind of thing. I got really into this this sort of button pushing game, and I realized that I was spending way too much time on it, and so I actually built a device to help myself break the habit of playing the game. So at first it was gonna like push the button for me, and then it was like something where I could like track every time I had an impulse to play it, and then I didn't, and I could give myself points for that. And then it turned out that just like building the thing helped break the habit because I like got a different obsession. But
yeah, that's interesting. Oh, that's very familiar to me.
Yeah, that's why I can't get into Animal Crossing. I just can't let myself do that. We have a comment from
what was the game?
It was some aquarium game on like the phone where you had to like you could click things and get different fish.
Yeah, those games are so addicting. That's some like psychological trick.
It really is. You know, it's you can't blame yourself because it's some people's entire job, right, to like make these things addictive. So, sweet comment from Erica. Got an Oskitone OK synth keyboard kit at the last Maker Faire. Works in conjunction with my 3D printing class. Love showing off enclosures, and this was a fun build.
Erica, thank you. Oh, that's lovely to hear.
So let's see. I have a bunch more questions for you. Okay, so speaking of which, you've obviously solved a number of these and met a bunch of people at maker fairs. Who's the coolest or most famous person who has got one of these and has used one of these?
Besides you. I don't know. It's funny. So these are musical instruments, but my demographic isn't really musicians. It's mostly like parents with kids. So there's been like one noteworthy musician who's reached out to me, but I didn't really work on it. The ones that I love are the parents with kids. So I get a lot of pictures of somebody of a dad who's like, I made this Poly 555 and now my kid plays with it and they call it their magic keyboard and they bang on it all the time and they'll send me a picture of this toddler with this thing. And I love it. I think those are my celebrities. Yeah, I like that.
That's wonderful. Why did you call it Oskitone? What's the name? What's the story behind that name?
Oskitone, well, for one, the domain name was available.
Legitimate.
2, Oski like oscillator, and tone like a note that you hear. Oski is spelled with a K because I wanted to force like a hard pronunciation.
Yeah, you don't want to end up with a GIF controversy there, or exactly. A KiCad controversy.
Exactly right. And people will call it Oskitone or Oskitone or whatever. I don't really care.
Oskitone.
Oskitone. I'm cool with all that. It's a made up word. It's fine. If you spell it right, I'm happy. Cool. I guess Oski is the name of the bear from Cal Berkeley.
Oh.
I didn't go to Berkeley, but I'm cool with that. That's fine.
Yeah, you do often, like when you put something in the world, you learn what everyone else's associations with that thing are. And they're right. Like, did you design it based on the Berkeley bear? Sure.
Yeah. There are absolutely worse things to be associated with. Yeah. Berkeley's cool. I have family went to Berkeley. They're nice, fine folks.
I was shocked that you don't have any graphic design background, but hearing that you did like film and animation absolutely makes sense because these stickers that you make are totally gorgeous.
Thank you so much. That was my most recent one. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but I'm very enamored with that Dip 8 thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Has anybody done that design before?
Not that I know of, but it makes me think of this. Let me grab this if I can reach. I'm just gonna drop everything on the ground, but like it reminds me of like, you know, the evil mad scientist, like giant 555 timer. Yeah. So good.
I think they're so cool. At Maker Faire 2018, our booths were near each other and they stopped by and they plugged that into my OK2. And it was the greatest sort of uneventful demo ever. You know what I mean? It's like swapping out a chip and I was like, oh, how's it? What's gonna happen? And they're like, oh, nothing. It's just gonna work.
It's just a 555.
Yeah.
It's really incredible that it.
That's
just
what happened.
Works like that.
It just worked.
Oh man, now I'm picturing like a giant table-sized one of your synthesizers with like all these discrete 555s in it.
Oh, that'd be weird. Yeah,
it'd be super weird.
Cool.
Where did you learn circuit design?
I borrowed a book from the library about Eagle. And that's how I learned about PCB design. For circuit design, I don't know, make books and stuff like that. I like books.
Nice.
I'm not you. I think any electrical engineer could look at my stuff. You could look at my stuff and be like, this could have been better.
Same.
But it seems to work. I get things wrong sometimes, but nothing's blown up yet.
And, like, there's always gonna be people on Twitter who are happy to tell you exactly how you're messing up in their perception. So,
Yeah, God bless them. Thanks
yeah.
everybody. Thank you.
What are your favorite, other synthesizers?
I love. I wish I had some here. I for a while I would compulsively buy old Casio keyboards on eBay,
Ooh.
like the VL Tone and the SK1 and SK5 and these sorts of things, like early sampling keyboards. There was a time in the 80s when Casio, which was like a calculator and watch company,
Yeah.
started making keyboards. And so, like, I think the first ones they put out were just these ridiculous sort of keyboard calculator things. And I'm very into that. I'm really into the thing that doesn't quite know what it is. And I love that sort of
It's a good aesthetic.
VSC rating, don't bother.
Seemingly worthless, has somehow found fame and fortune despite looking like ultra cheesy sounds. Oh my.
One day this particular keyboard has a Wikipedia article that lists out a lot of the popular songs that used it. And one day I made a Spotify playlist that has all these songs.
Whoa.
And it's fun for about 2 or 3 songs, but then it gets very tiring hearing the same like but I love that. I love the old ones that were, I don't think they were pre-MIDI, but it just like wasn't worth it to them. They're just kind of standalone piano keyboards. If you're lucky, they have an output jack. Some of them had like tape cartridges for some song that it could play poorly.
Oh man,
almost all of them, and the ones that I love have an accompaniment section. So there would be, have you ever seen this? There's like, you could have it autoplay some chord in some genre, and the genre is like a radio button thing. And you could have like
remember there was like a bossa nova one and stuff like that.
Bossa Nova, that's my favorite one. I'll play bossa nova and a Casio tone all day, and everyone will hate it, but I'll love it. I love
you
it.
get tired of that, you can go.
And then you go like rock and roll 2, swing, and it doesn't work at all, and you can change the I geek out on that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have those demos sort of drilled into my memory, like kind of thing.
Like green sleeves or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So cool. Let me see. What else have I got for you? Well, what's next in the world of Oskitone? You've put out, like I said, it's incredible. You've put out 3 different new things during this period of Panini, and I'm wondering if you have any ideas for what might come next.
Up next are more microcontroller based instruments. Right. I want to be done with 555s. That APC was a 555 thing too. I want to make bigger, weirder things. I want to make things that don't necessarily look like pianos. I think pianos are nice because it's like an understood interface, and we've had it for a long time, and anybody can look at it and kind of understand more or less what's happening. But I want to make things that don't necessarily look like that, but are still musical. I've done things before like chord synths and stuff like this that'll play chords for you. A lot of people want MIDI controllers out of me. I might do that. Yeah, I want to do some weird stuff probably with 18 megas. I want to get into surface mount, which I'm scared of, but I need to bite the bullet there. The next thing you'll probably see out of me is probably a wider scout. I think the next obvious step is more keys and polyphonic, and then maybe some other knobs for wave type or adjustable glide and stuff like this. Maybe a bigger speaker. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, especially if you're doing like a bigger keyboard, you could go further into the bass range.
Right. Yeah, an octave setting. Something that is less like a toy and more like a viable musical instrument. there's this point that I try to reach with all my designs where it's like, yeah, it needs to be fun to use, but it also needs to be like worth the effort to put together. And so a lot of people, for the Scout, for example, they'll want all these features like MIDI and stuff, and I'm like, that's not worth it. You have 17 keys here, like it's not worth whatever complexity you're suggesting. But I think when you add more keys and you make it, I don't know, you add to the utility of this thing, then it can be worth the complexity of adding these other features. And so that's something that I try to balance out a lot. I don't know if that's interesting, but yeah, more keys, polyphony, stuff like this.
Yeah, what about like other types of waves? Is this when you played it earlier, I don't remember if it was like a square wave, but I feel like you could do like sine waves. You were talking about doing ramps and stuff. It seems like
I think so. I think that there's a way to approximate those other waves.
Probably be approximating, right?
Yeah. Which I need to learn about. There are libraries and stuff that will do this for you, which I'll dig into. But yeah, I hope that the Scout sets a good kind of groundwork for experimentation. And I've gotten an email or two from other folks who have kind of hacked theirs to do weird things, which I'm excited about. One customer put, so right now there's 17 keys that are using 9 pins, something like this, whatever. They're set in a matrix. And it uses the keypad Arduino library, but because there aren't diodes, you'll get weird ghosting. So you'll play 3 notes that you think are right next to each other, and the next note that you play supplants the previous one, but you play this third one, which you think will be an E, and it'll be like an F sharp or something. Because of ghosting, I think.
That's really interesting.
So somebody wired up diodes in this thing and started playing with. They started playing with what polyphony looks like as arpeggios. You know what I'm talking about? I think the idea is that.
So like if you hold down multiple keys instead of trying to play them simultaneously, it would just arpeggiate them?
Yeah. It's interesting. It sounds kind of like an old telephone.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because I think those notes were modulated, something like that. I don't know the words, but it's interesting.
That does sound really interesting. So everyone, you can keep up to date with what's going on with Oskitone at oskitone.com. There's a mailing list you can join. There's Oskitone at Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow Tommy at Rocktronica on Twitter. And there's also an Oskitone GitHub with all this cool stuff, including like the KiCad files, the OpenSCAD files, this shell scripts that you can use to make the STLs from OpenSCAD. Super cool. All the design stuff, all the Arduino code and stuff, and also these sweet animations.
Oh, those sweet animations. I don't know how many other folks are using OpenSCAD for things like this. If you are, please reach out to me. Anytime I tweet about OpenSCAD, I'm like, who's the audience for this? I don't know.
I have to point out one other thing, which I forget which one it was on. I think it was on this Poly 555 one. But I was wondering what this other piece, there's this diagonal sort of hole in here. And of course it's for your little, you stick a pen in there and it works as a stand. That's so cool.
Yeah, you do that. And then it kind of can flunk over like that.
I love that.
I'm of the opinion that I try to make electronics kits that don't look like electronics kits. And so I think a lot about there's the joy you get out of putting it together, the joy you get out of using it, and then I also want there to be this other joy that's just like looking at it. You know, when you're done with it, does it go in a drawer? Does it go on a shelf? I want to make things that go on a shelf. Maybe not permanently, but like I like to admire the fruits of my labor, and putting a fun way to angle it in a nice way is I don't know, a funny way to encourage that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, design for the behavior that you want. I can see that coming through. And oh look, they've got it like put up sideways like this, and someone made their own Halloween colored version. All kinds of cool stuff on your Instagram. little extra tools and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because we could just do this for hours. Thank you so much for joining. I've loved the look of these since for so long, and I totally still want to get a Poly 555. I might do that eventually. And yeah, thanks a lot, and have an awesome day.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you to you and the Hackster crew for having me. Have a
Yeah,
great week.
cheers, you too. Thanks
Bye.
everyone for